Okay. Hi, I'm Adithya. And today I'm going to be refuting the advocate's claim that LGBTQ plus material, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus material, needs to be inducted into school sex ed classes. The advocate does this uses three secondary claims. Number one, LGBTQ plus youths don't have many trusted adults to discuss topics like sex, so they frequently go to the internet for information. Number two, STDs are on the rise in LGBTQ plus community thanks to social media and hookup apps. And then three, sex ed classes can be used as a venue for children to learn more about sexual orientations, gender identity, and encourage acceptance for LGBTQ plus people and families. For the first secondary claim, again, that is LGBTQ plus youths don't have many trusted adults to discuss topics like sex, so they frequently go to the internet for information. And the evidence that the advocate uses for this is a study conducted by Planned Parenthood back in 2017, and results from a Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, from 2010 school health profile. The problem with this evidence is in the evidence with the school health profile. It states that about 8% to 44% of schools provided sex ed materials that were LGBTQ inclusive. The problem is the claim says nothing about that. It talks about the fact that people don't have trusted adults to talk about this kind of topic. And so that evidence doesn't support that secondary claim. For the second secondary claim, there's one piece of evidence used. It's a Centers for Disease Control study conducted in 2014, which reveals that sexually active gay and bisexual men accounted for 83% of primary and secondary syphilis cases, and that gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men are 17 times more likely to get anal cancer than heterosexual men are. The problem with this is there's one problem. There are two problems, actually. The secondary claim talks about how STDs are on the rise because of social media and other hookup apps. This evidence doesn't mention anything about how social media causes STDs in the first place. And as for the reasoning part of it, the advocate never states, or the advocate blindly states that this is caused by social media and hookup apps. And as a counterexample for this, in 2012, James Fowler, a professor of medical genetics at UC San Diego, developed an app that utilizes social media to provide information about the user's chance of getting the virus for any for STDs, particularly HIV. And for the third secondary claim, that sex ed classes can be used as a venue for children to learn more about sexual orientations, gender identity, and encourage acceptance for LGBTQ plus people. The evidence stated is that is a national study conducted by the Sexuality Information and Educational Council of the U.S., and it reveals that LGBTQ plus students who experience frequent harassment at school report lower GPAs than those who are not harassed, and nearly 1 in 3 of those students has skipped classes because they feel unsafe. Now that addresses only one half of that secondary claim, but not the fact that it can be used as a venue for children to learn more about sexual orientations and gender identity. And so in conclusion, the problem the advocate has in terms of his evidence is that either he uses evidence that doesn't support the secondary claim, or there's missing evidence that doesn't address part of the secondary claim. Thank you.
Right, organizationally, everything's easy to keep track of. You do a long preview, takes you a while to get through it, so it's almost a minute and a half before you actually get to refuting the first point. You're going to need to be a little bit quicker on that. There's a discussion about the study that the advocate cites, and your criticism of it is basically its relevance to the main claim about whether or not there is somebody for adults that they can trust to talk to, or adults that they can trust, what. And I agree that the evidence doesn't really support that particular point, although it does suggest that there is a dearth of information available, and that not all schools participate and provide this kind of information to their students. So although it may not meet the specific claim that's being presented here, I'm not sure that it's irrelevant to the general argument, in particular the main proposition. You don't demonstrate that there is access to other useful information anyplace else that would be useful or helpful to students who are in this group or category. And it seems like that might have been a good counterclaim on this particular point. The notion that they go to the internet just for hookups suggests that they're not capable of searching information on other subjects, or that there aren't groups that do online support, whether they are chat groups or Facebook groups or specialized groups where people who fit into these categories might learn from one another. It makes it sound like they're all just hookup groups, which is on the second point. On the second point, your evidence, it's the same sort of thing where the evidence does provide half a thing, and you point out that it's only half a thing, that it's dealing with it does show that there is a relationship between syphilis, by the way. If I'm going to get crap for your name, I'm going to picking on my mother's name. Her name was Phyllis, and it's not syphilis. Syphilis is the way you pronounce it. But it's okay, not a big deal. The absence of information on social media being related to that, I thought that was a good challenge on that. I'm not exactly sure what you want us to do with the app thing that you discover. That's the one piece of evidence that you generate on this subject, and it just tells us that there's some way that people can analyze the risk of getting an STD. So does that minimize the need for having additional information? Does that mean that the students don't have to have access to this information in a classroom context because they can get information on an app? That's the claim that you need to be making. So you need to tell me what it is I'm going to do with this information that you've presented, and how does it affect their argument. All right, and the third point, we're back to the same sort of thing. I think that there's a partial relationship of the information to the claim. I'm not sure how significant the claim is. That was never discussed, and so that probably could have been spent. You could have spent some time on that as well. All right, thank you.